So we're going to cover the introduction to the PBR texturing method. So what is PBR texturing? Okay, basically it's a method of shading and rendering that provides a more accurate representation on how the light will interact with the surface. So in a basic term, it's a new or modern way of doing texture. And currently the software that you're going to be using mainly to create this PBR texturing method is Substance Painter. Okay, so this is how the texture is created using Substance Painter, and you can create all these nice texture pretty easy using Substance Painter. Okay, so basically the texture will stay stable in the different kind of light scenario. Okay, now what is the benefit of using this method? Again, it's much easier to create a material. Okay, because in the old days we have to kind of like guess the value or the surface, right, to create the material that we want. And number two is that the material will look correct in a different lighting condition, because sometimes in the old day, like when we change the lighting scenario, sometimes the texture like behave differently, and it is very hard for us to keep changing the texture whenever the light scenario are changing. And the last but not least is that this workflow create a consistent artwork, so the texture will be consistent across the production pipeline. Okay, and when it comes to the PBR workflow, we have two different workflow. So there is metal roughness PBR workflow, and there is specular glossiness PBR workflow. Now, so which one to use? It really depends to the game engine or maybe the project that you're working on. Some game engine require you to use this metal roughness. I think some engine also require you to use this. So it really depends on the project. But for our project and for our year 3 also, we're going to be using this metal roughness. Okay, so this will be our workflow. So basically we're going to export the base color. Okay, so this will be one individual JPEG, and this will be one individual JPEG, and also this. Okay, so this PBR workflow at least require like this texture file to create something like this. Okay, now this is a typical result or typical file that you export from Substance Painter. So you need like a base color, or the color albedo, and normal or bump map, right? If there's any like information for the bump, and the ambient occlusion if you need to export, and you have to export the roughness and metallic. Okay, so you need to export like at least 4 to 5 files for each texture set. So if you are doing a texture for this object, right, then this object will require 5 different texture set just for this object. Okay, so you would realize like how fast the texture files is getting bigger and like much more. Okay, so when you're doing this PBR workflow, you need to have like a good file naming convention as well. Now, I think you're pretty much familiar with the base color. So base color kind of like determine the base color of the object. Okay, so in this case this will be a red portion, and this one will be gray. Now, what about roughness? Well, people usually refer roughness to micro detail. So if you want to put like scratches, right, or fingerprint or whatever, this is a map that will be responsible for that thing. Okay, so basically it's a grayscale, right? So black and white color, right? And the type will be linear. Okay, it will make more sense when you're actually doing the practical later. Okay, so this roughness map actually describes like the surface irregular. So it's an example on how the roughness map look like from the side view. Okay, so when the light comes in, this will bounce accordingly to the map that you put in. Okay, so black will indicate smooth, and white, a value of 1, will indicate how rough it is, and the value in between will create this like 0.5, 0.6, that will create these irregularities. Okay, so this is an example of roughness map look like. Okay, and again, when the value is set to black, everything will be very smooth. So it's like, well, you know, when you buy a brand new phone, so everything is nice and smooth. Okay, and when you set the value to 1, there is no like reflection. Everything will be like more matte. Okay, and when you start putting some texture, right, it will be like this. Okay, so you can see some scratches happening there. So this is the kind of detail that we want you guys to start doing, okay, for your assignment starting from now. Okay, so this is the benefit of using the PBR method. And if you compare, when you put nothing in the roughness map, so there is no map in the roughness, and you get something like this, very smooth, very clean, like a brand new phone or car. Okay, and this is after putting the map. Now, moving on, the metalness, right, is just a map that defines how much metal properties does the object have. So if the map is all black, that means the object is not made of metal. But if there is any white value, which is 1, then that area will have a strong like metal properties. And again, Metalness map is also a grayscale. Okay, and if you look at the example here, this is what the Metalness map look like. Okay, so there's a black portion, not metal, and there is this white portion, which is like very metal. Okay. And again, if you compare this with that, the object on the right hand side, it has more metal properties as compared to this one. So this one feels like a more as a plastic-y ish, right, feel as compared to this one. So this one, because the value is set to 1, and this is like full-on metal properties, whereas 0.5 is in between of this and that one. Okay, and again, this one I have my metalness and roughness map apply. Same thing with this one as well. It has metalness and roughness apply, so you can see the scratches. Okay, but in here I can see like this object has more metallic properties, right? Because I apply the metallic map into it, okay, as compared to this one. Okay, so more like a metal. And again, this is the kind of example that you can do using PBR method, which is done in Substance Painter. So you can easily create like a very nice detail, things like rust, things like dirt, as compared you doing in Photoshop. Okay, so this is more like a modern way of doing things. And you can also use a preset, obviously, and also all this lettering, like all detail work, that's very hard, very difficult to do in the old days. Now it's just very easy to generate in PBR, or in Substance rather. Okay, and these days most of the AAA game you are using the PBR method. Okay, things like Monster Hunter, Cyberpunk. Okay, most of the AAA are utilizing this method to create like a very realistic texture. Okay, so I think it's a good time for us to learn this method.